I'm not going to tell you my name. I'm just going to ask you, are you an abandoned parent? Abandoned by your adult children. I am. I'm not sure why. I'm sure I've made mistakes, but I loved my sons, including my stepson, their entire lives that I was around them. I did the best I could. Now, did I marry the best of men? No. Did I see the best of men after I was divorced? No. I was an abused child. Anybody who knows anything about adult children of alcoholics or other forms of abuse know that we are very poor at choosing someone to be with. We generally choose someone like the abusive parent and try to fix them. So, despite how terrible my boys' fathers were, I chose them thinking I loved them, not realizing subconsciously I chose them thinking I could fix them. So, boys, you were born. I'm sorry I didn't choose the best of fathers or even the best of men after I left those fathers, as it has taken me years to figure some of these things out, and I'm still figuring. I'm at the point, though, since I basically have a death sentence, that it's not really that important. What's important to me is that my boys start talking to me again and not shunning me. Whatever they think I've done that I deserve to be cast away in no way can compare to the criminal father of my stepson and older son, who should have gone to jail, but I rescued him, not knowing you shouldn't rescue a gambling addict who forged signatures, used bad checks with my name on them and forged my signature, causing us to get a second mortgage for thousands of dollars. And I never knew, actually, at that time when our son was very young and I was very young, how much he lost, because he could not admit that he was a gambling addict. I didn't even know anything such thing existed. So I helped with the second mortgage. I helped create an in-law unit in our large, beautiful home. And I didn't even resent him because he promised it would never happen again. Guess what, boys? It did. A lot. And I took heat, not from my stepson, who knew what his father was like, but my older son was not quite 5 when I found out that that man was still gambling away our money, and said that's it, and went to an attorney and had letters go out so I wouldn't be responsible for his debts. I took the heat from my son because you're not supposed to say negative things about the other parent in the situation of separating and divorcing. So I told him I was just unhappy, and he blamed me and was very angry. I just took it. A couple years later, his father was working in Benicia, and we were living very near to the Benicia border. My son was going to Benicia schools, which weren't nearly as good as the schools I had put him in Albany, but I was talked into moving there by my second husband. He asked to have him on Thursday nights, his father, and I agreed because I felt the boys needed to be with each other and with their father as much as possible, despite his shortcomings. So, Thursdays, I started working 11 to 7 in the dental office so that I could see patients after work as a convenience for them. It was very much appreciated. Another day of the week, I worked very early, like 7 o'clock, to see people before work. So I did this as a favor to patients. It wasn't the best for me, though I did avoid the worst of the commute. At any rate, I didn't get a phone call because that's before cell phones. My son wasn't old enough to memorize more than our home number. My second husband was a firefighter. He was on duty. So because of the distance, I got off at 7. It was after 7:30 when I got home. The daycare person believed my little boy that his father frequently ran late and left him there, locked out of the daycare center, standing on the street. After a while, some very kind neighbors came out, asked him what they could do to help. He didn't go in their house. Good boy. He did accept water, and he gave them our phone number. Of course, no one was home. So the husband called it over and over. The wife kept an eye on our son until I got home after 7:30, heard the phone ringing, ran to grab it, and got it. You do see red when you're that upset. The blood just goes to your head and fills your eyeballs. So I raced to the daycare center from Glen Cove, seeing red. My son was extremely upset. He wasn't scared. He was a pretty brave guy, but he had to do number 2 in his pants because there was nowhere to go and he wasn't going to pull his pants down outside. So he had to stand up in the back seat. He would not sit down and let me buckle him in, so I had him hold on, and I drove very slowly. And the entire time that we were going home, he told me that his father was a liar, a gambler, and a cheat, and he was very, very angry. His older brother, my stepson, had completely filled him in on what his father did. Plus, he was getting the idea when his father would give him a Nintendo, for example, and the next time he visited, the Nintendo would be gone because his father pawned it to get money to go to the horse track. That's just an example. He did other things like not paying child support for 9 years, which is why I continued to get child support while that son was in college, and I just handed it over to him. I didn't keep it for myself, even though I'd had to work extra and we lived on a very strict budget because that man didn't pay child support for most of the years that I had him to myself. Then we get to my second son, my younger son, who was sickly from birth. He had colic, and then we didn't know that he had a lot of allergies. We were going to Kaiser then because my second husband wanted the cheapest possible insurance so he wouldn't have to pay a dime out of his paycheck. After Kaiser didn't fix our son, didn't fix me with a lot of issues after the birth of our son, and it was an awful place. Our son diaper trained early, so he got into a great little daycare place in Benicia, and we got a call that he'd fallen off, I think, a jungle gym and hit his cheekbone, which it's very hard to get that to close up and stay closed. So they used their insurance, took him to urgent care, and that's where we met Dr. Dickie Hill, who said, when I took him back to get his stitches out, your son has got a lot of allergies. It's very obvious looking at him, and you need to do things about it. That's why he has so many ear infections, because he told me about it. So we did everything that Dickie Hill told us to do, and that boy got well in a matter of 3 months. No more ear infections, no being up at night, which meant I was up at night. And before that, my second husband kept accusing me of spoiling my little baby, who was so sickly and miserable so much of the time and couldn't gain weight. Accused me of spoiling him. That's why he didn't sleep. That's why he got sick. I spoiled him. He also ended up having neurological problems for school. He was very bright. He was very articulate. He could read fine. He could not put it down on paper. Homework nights were tearful nights, and he considered himself stupid. The elementary school even suggested that we hold him back. And I said, listen to this boy's vocabulary. Look at what he can read. Look at what he can do when you give him a creative assignment. There is something going on here. Again, his father accused him of being lazy and of me spoiling him. However, in a visit to our holistic type optometrist in Sonoma County, he was diagnosed with something very rare called dysesthesia. Once we had that diagnosis, the school finally agreed to do more testing, and we found issues with his hearing, other neurological issues, and he got on the resource specialist program, which brought him up to par enough that by the time he graduated high school, he was at a 3.0. Now, this was cause for celebration for all of us. He didn't feel stupid, and when he went on to community college and firefighter academy, he aced his favorite courses. He knew how to study, he knew how to take tests. Not less for me helping him either, because I'm an educator, and once I knew what his problem was, I could help him. He was not lazy. He was not spoiled, except for the fact that I loved him to pieces. Now, in 2006, I pretty much had it with driving in California, with the situation with the community college that I taught for, which in no way compared to how wonderful Dominican University was. Very friendly, but the pay wasn't as good. So, the boys having graduated high school, graduated college, my older son was already living in Manhattan. My stepson was on his own for many years and in his 30s by that time. And by the way, I helped him into his 30s and bought him a car whole, and then gave him a down payment for another car when he wrecked that, and he hadn't bought collision and comprehensive, which was part of the deal. But what can I say? He was a problem at times, and now he's a problem because he's accused me of things that aren't true. And by the way, boys, if you see this, you don't know how many witnesses I have to how terrible your fathers were and how good a mother I was to you. They do not understand why you are treating me like this. And they don't understand why 2 months after my father died suddenly, you had to gang up on the phone with me and tear into me, and then you shamed me for getting tearful when I was tearful all the time anyway. Real sympathy, real understanding on your part, and I'm the terrible one. So, I've given up. I take the pain. It's with me all the time. It probably hasn't helped in the situation I'm in now, in that after a debilitating, terrible car accident, which required many surgeries and caused an issue similar to multiple sclerosis for part of my body, for which I have to take medicine, and I didn't want to take any opiates, so I just used Advil. It worked. Guess what? Advil will ruin your kidneys. And I took it a lot for 8 years before a doctor finally said, you should probably cut that out. Not one other doctor told me that. As a matter of fact, I was told, hey, take 800 milligrams at a time. It's fine. It's not. My kidneys are at stage 3B. I'm being extremely careful now. I'm using an alternative pain medicine that's legal in many states, and I am on a kidney diet which is so bland that I lose weight without trying because I just don't feel like eating. There's no reason to snack on food that's not particularly great except for berries and grapes. Those are the best part of the diet. No blackberries, but all the other berries. So boys, I won't end up on dialysis because I know nobody in my family is even going to check to see if they match for a kidney. That's an abandoned parent. No holidays, no holiday calls, no birthday calls, no calls to see, how are you doing, Mom? You've had it pretty hard. As a matter of fact, without being able to work since that car accident in February 2008, I have hardly anything. But guess what? I'm just going to spend what I have to travel before I'm tied down to dialysis. And believe me, I may not do dialysis because I've gotten to the point that I don't feel like living without my children in my life.